Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 6 and let us introduce ourselves. My name is Zufar Fakhruddin Suyuti and then Rafa,
My name
My
is
name
Rafa Hape.
Rehan,
my name is Zahra Amira.
Han,
Raihan Bey.
Devi. Introduction.
I'm Devi Adzilina.
Okay, and now we are going to present about chapter 7, which is a word and its structure. Okay, firstly, let us see in the table of contents. Here we have 6 subchapters. The first one is meaning and structure, followed by affixes as heads, and then move on to more elaborate word forms, multiple affixation, and then compound within compound. After that, apparent mismatches between meaning and structure, and then conclusion. Okay, firstly, let me explain about the first subchapter, which is meaning and structure. Many words have meaning that are predictable on the basis of their components. Some are so predictable that it don't have to be listed as lexical items. Its predictability depends on how the structure guides their interpretation. Even if it's lexically listed, unless they have different meaning from what are expected, such guidance is irrelevant. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about how it operates and about the circumstances under which meaning and structure appear to diverge. In some words, the structure is straightforward. For example, the lexeme helpful as discussed in chapter 5 is derived from the noun base help by means of the adjective forming suffix full. Because there are only 2 elements, it may seem there's not much to say about its structure. Even with just those components, there is a clear distinction between the actual word from helpful and the ill-formed one will help, a distinction that will be discussed in section 7.2. Then section 7.3 until 7.4 deal with affix words and compounds that have more than 2 components such as unhelpfulness and car insurance premium. Lastly, in section 7.5, we will confront a dilemma posed by items like French history teacher in its 2 interpretation, French teacher of history and teacher of French history. Okay, moving on to 7.2. Go ahead.
All right, I will explain point 2, affixes as heads. Affix is a grammatical element that is combined with a word, stem, or phrase to produce derivative or inflected form. There are three main types of affixes. First, prefixes. It occurs at the beginning of the word or stem. Second, infixes. It occurs in the middle of a word. And the last is suffixes. It occurs at the end of the word. Next. In English derivational morphology, suffixes heavily outnumber prefixes and most compounds are headed with the head on the right. In English grammar, a head is the key word that determines the nature of a phrase, or in contrast, any modifier or determiners. I will explain with example. First, greenhouse. House in this word is as a head. House determines the compound syntactic status or as a noun and also its meaning. So greenhouse means a kind of house for plants. Second is teacher. ER as a head in this word. ER changed the meaning of the base teach. that is verb, to teacher, that is noun, and it means someone who teach. Third, helpful. Full in this word is as a head. Full changes the whole word to be adjective form from the base help, that is verb. Next, prefixes are rare in English as left-headed compound are, but there are some common occurrence. First, an, that means not. For example, helpful becomes unhelpful. An in this word doesn't change anything. An, an is prefix, remain noun. For example, unease or unrest. Therefore, an is not the head of this word, helpful, but helpful itself. Next, or again. The example is arrange become rearrange. Doesn't change anything. Is prefixed verb like repaint or re-educate. Therefore, is not the head of the word rearrange, but arrange itself. Next. So here's the prefix that are unequivocally head are those that change word class. First is de as head. For example, laws, it is noun, become the laws, that is verb. Second, en as a head. For example, finable, it is adjective, become enfinable, it is verb. Second, slave, it is noun, becomes unslave, it is verb. All right, that's enough for me. Next topic.
Okay, the next is 7.3, more elaborate word forms, multiple affixation. As we can see from the title, multiple affixation, many derived words contain more than one affix. Examples are unhelpful, unhelpfulness, and helplessness. These words is entirely flat, that is, that they each consist of merely a string of affixes plus a root. No portion of the string being grouped together as a substring or smaller constituent within the word. The behavior of the suffixes full and less. In chapter 5, these were straightforwardly treated as suffixes that attach to nouns to form adjectives. However, if the nouns unhappiness and helplessness are flat structure, we must also allow full and less to appear internally in a string that constitutes a noun. Next. The flat structure approach misses a crucial observation. Unhelpfulness contains the suffix full only by virtue of the fact that it contains in some sense the adjective helpful. Likewise, helplessness contains less by virtue of the fact that it contains helpless. And both these words can be seen as derived from the root helped by successive processes of affixation with N, V, and A standing for noun, verb, and adjective respectively. For example, help. The help as noun and plus full become helpful adjective. Then un plus helpful become unhelpful adjective. Unhelpful plusness become unhelpful unhelpfulness, noun. Next. As in 3 and 4, which also represent the fact that the noun help is formed by conversion from the verb. As we can see from the picture number 3, it is unhelpfulness. Help is verb, then it's become noun, and help plus full becomes adjective. Then unhelpful adjective. Then unhelpfulness becomes noun. The points in a tree diagram from which branches sprout are called nodes. The nodes in 3 and 4 are all labeled to indicate the word class of the string that is of the part of the whole word that is dominated by the node in question. For example, the second to top node in third is labeled A to indicate that the string unhelpful that dominates in is an adjective, while the topmost node is labeled noun because the whole word is a noun. Next. The information about structure contained in tree diagrams such as number third and fourth can also be conveyed in a label bracketing, where one pair of brackets correspond to each node in the tree. It's similar to the tree diagram in the slide before. Help, help is verb. It can also noun, help, and then helpful adjective, then unhelpful adjective, then unhelpful plus ness becomes noun. Next. One thing stands out about all the nodes in third and fourth, it has no more than 2 branches sprouting downwards from it. This reflects the fact that in English, derivational processes operate by adding no more than one affix to a base. Unlike languages, where material may be added simultaneously at both ends, constituting what is sometimes called circumfix. So it's simultaneously on the affix both in ends, like English uh, uh, circumfix double, so at both ends. The single branch connecting noun to verb above help in third and fourth reflects the fact that the noun help is derived from the verb help by conversion with no affix. So as we can see in the tree diagram that the help noun become verb with no affix. At fifth and sixth are 2 more word tree diagrams incorporating an adverbial node and also illustrating both affixal and non-affixal heads, each italicized element being the head of the constituent dominated by the node immediately above it. It's similar to the tree diagram above. We can read as assert verb plus if assertive adjective, unassertive adjective, then unassertive plus ly become adverb. Next. Another style Another salient point in all of third till six is that more than one node in a tree diagram may carry the same word class label noun, verb, adjective. At first sight, this may not seem particularly remarkable. However, it has considerable implication for the size of the class of all possible words in English.
Okay, now this is my part. It's about more elaborate word forms, compounds within compounds. In the previous section, we saw that the structure of words derived by affixation can be represented in tree diagrams where each branch has at most two branches. The same applies to compounds. Any compound has just two immediate constituents. In chapter 6, all the compounds that were discussed contained just two parts. This was not an accident or anything. To see this, consider for example the noun that one might use to denote a new cleaning product equally suitable for ovens and windows. Parallel to the secondary compound hair restorer are the two-part compounds oven cleaner and window cleaner. Can we then refer to the new product with a three-part compound such as window oven cleaner? Answer is no. Window oven cleaner is not naturally interpreted to mean something that cleans both windows and ovens, but it means cleaning something that cleans window ovens. You can see the diagram here. Instead of uh, make picture 7, but the correct diagram is picture 8. Next, uh, in some compounds, one or both of the components should itself be a compound. Compound at picture 8 can itself be an element in a larger compound. Another example is window oven cleaner marketing. We can see the picture 9. It's like that. Its main stress should be on window oven and specifically on its left-hand element, namely window. Next, can we conclude that all complex compound nouns follow the left stretch pattern of simple compound nouns? It may have struck you that in picture 8 and 9, the compounds within compounds are uniformly on the left. We have not yet looked at compounds or potential compounds in which it is the right-hand element. So we can see the examples here. We have, wait, we have picture 10, 11, and 12. Native speakers are likely to agree that whereas in picture 10, menstrues is on holiday. In 11, it is on car. This is consistent with car trip being compound with car as its left-hand element, but not with an analysis in which holiday car trip is a compound noun with holiday as its left-hand element. The stress on the right-hand element in holiday car trip makes it resemble phrases such as greenhouse and toy factory, discussed in section 6.1, rather than compounds such as greenhouse and toy factory, yet it would be strange if a compound noun cannot itself be the lead of the head of a compound noun, given that any other kind of noun can be. The best solution seems to be qualify what was said in chapter 6 about stress in compound nouns. The usual pattern with stress on the left is overridden if the head is a compound. In that case, stress is on the right, that is, on the compound which constitutes the head. Another way of expressing this is to say that the right-hand component in a compound noun gets stressed if and only if it is itself a compound. Otherwise, the left-hand component gets stressed. This is consistent with an examples in chapter 6, as well as with native speakers institutions about pairs such as picture 10 and picture 11. It is also consistent with a more complex example such as picture 12, involving internal compounds on both left and right branches. If you apply carefully to picture 12 formula that we have arrived at, you should find that it predicts the main stress should be on site. Seems correct. So the point is the right-hand component in a compound noun gets stressed if and only if it itself uh, itself a compound. Otherwise the left-hand component gets stressed. Next.
So the next is apparent mismatch between meaning and structure. First, we have to realize that at some point the meaning of a phrase or a sentence isn't go hand in hand with the structure. In this subchapter, I will talk about whether a phrase can ever be a constituent of a compound word. So next. So first we will talk about the bracketing paradox. Bracketing paradox concerns morphologically complex words which have more than one bracket or analysis. For example, nuclear physicists. Uh, Nuclear physicists have two bracketing or analysis. The first one is the structure form. From the structure forms, it may mean a physicist who is a nuclear, which is no sense. A physicist is a person, not a nuclear, right? And the second, from the semantic or real meaning, is someone who is expert in nuclear physicists. I forgot to tell you that nuclear physicist is a noun phrase with noun is physicist and adjective is nuclear. So next, I will tell you why. From the bracketing paradox here, how can I see the difference between the first and the second sentence? You can see that in the first example, the nuclear physicist is divided into, translated word by word. So the ist here, the affix here, is stick to the physicist, not the phrase, the nuclear physicist, but only the physicist, which means a physicist who is a nuclear, because it isn't stick to the phrase. Different with the number two where affix stick to the phrase, not the physicist only. So the word by word mean it isn't word by word meaning anymore, right? And the next one, for more example, French historian. You can also see that French historian, the and here in the first example, stick to the history only, which makes the meaning historian who is French. Different from number two when the affix is, here stick to the phrase French history, which means expert in French history but not always a French people or a French person. Next. Then how about open door policy? which means we all know that the meaning is to open door for immigration, or the fresh air fanatic, fanatic for fresh air or new thing. Fresh air is the means of fresh air is new things. In fact, we cannot divide them like what we did to the previous example. Why? Because the phrases below only have one meaning, so there is no use uh, to divide them into some analysis because it only has one meaning. Because the open door uh, is a lexically listed phrase or idioms, and fresh air is an institutionalized phrase or cliches. They can appear in some context where unlisted phrase cannot, like the example open door policy and fresh air fanatic. Why idioms and cliches can do that? Because they either only have one meaning. And why they only have one meaning? Why can't they have many meanings? Because it's the origin, and in the book, we are asked not to question that. So, next, I guess. Well, conclusion. Conclusion. However, these examples are not be analyzed structurally. Their existence seems to show that in diversification and compounding as well as in flexion, semantic pressure can sometimes enforce the existence of an expression with certain meanings, and the expression chosen for that meanings need not to be structurally ideal. The language's acceptance of this expression, nevertheless, so that although word structure guide interpretation, it doesn't dictate it. Thank you for listening and for your attention.
Thank you, everyone.